Up.
Every contact we ever detect by its noise it makes or from intelligence we gain is hostile until we classify it otherwise.
Stand by, target set up.
A little bit further away, let's spin that
The ops room on board a submarine is embedded into the control room with all the sensors being amalgamated into the navigation cell, the ship control areas which we've seen today, and the tactical systems department which is right behind me. And we fuse that information in one source to classify all the contacts we find to work out exactly who they are, what they're doing, and then act appropriately. The ocean's full of ships which we don't know what they're doing until we've done that effort. So even on a benign transit, the submarine, the control room is a busy place. And when we do find a hostile contact or even a contact belonging to our own forces, it's always exciting and interesting to drill against it and prosecute an attack because it livens up the day and makes us do what we do best, rehearsing for ultimately war, which is our job.
Captain Roger, all positions redesignate this track. Master 01 classified Type 22, HMS Cumberland.
We practice at least 3 times a week, as well as damage control exercises, and that keeps us current. Where we are, unlike my surface counterparts, I've got another dimension to think about. I'm well underwater, and so we've got to think of our own safety and our own protection, and hence why we keep practicing our attack teams.
Ready, fire!
More and more often we're deploying globally now. Somewhere in the world you'll always find an SSN and an SSBN on patrol at any one time. The deterrence effect is you just don't know we're there. It presents its own problems with, or issues should I say, with separation from families, and we do endure quite a bit, as I'm quite sure our surface counterparts do.
The hardest times are saying goodbye to people we care about. It's relatively easy for us to go to sea, but the people we leave behind is the hardest heartstring. And it's communications and promulgating that information kindly across from the submarine to those we leave behind is probably the biggest challenge.
More about submariners' families later.
Well, I certainly feel as though I should be breathing in as I walk through here. This is the portside bunk space, and well, spacious it is not, is it, Martin?
No, it's not.
Certainly very cosy, and obviously a lot smaller than the bunk space on general service.
Yes, and this is actually one of the larger bunk spaces on board the submarine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, is this your bunk? Do you have the same bunk on the boat?
Yeah, this is my bunk. I use this bunk all the time. Sometimes if we bring extra trainees on board, we have to do a thing called hot bunking, where 2 guys will have to share the same bunk. Because we work a 6-on, 6-off rotational system, one can come out and the other one can go in. Obviously,
Okay.
they get their own bedding.
Yeah, well that's good. So 1 in, 1 out, and straight on with the next one. So when it's choppy, I mean, does it get very choppy? How is it on the bunks?
On a submarine, it doesn't get very rough unless we're on the surface and we go to PD, and it can get quite rough then. So all the bunks have got safety harnesses on them and straps so that you can strap yourself in and so you don't fall out.
Okay, well it's quite calm now, so I think I'm about ready to see if I can get up here. I'm sure there's some fabulous technique that you're probably not going to tell me, are you, how to get up? So for the safety of the camera and the crew and everything else, I might try this one. Top bunks are overrated anyway. Well, this is the bomb shop, or more officially known as...
Weapon storage compartment.
Thank you, Chris. Now I know this is your domain, isn't it?
Yes.
So what's your official role?
Basically, I prep the weapons before they get loaded into the torpedo tubes.
So that must be most guys' dream before they become a submariner.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, very impressive. And Dermot, what do you do?
I'm a chef on board.
So you're not normally down here?
No, not all the time, but we do store potatoes and milk and breakfast cereals, things like that down here.
Do you?
Yeah, in the back corners.
See, this is great. I can't get over this. Not only do they store food down here, but I know people come down and sleep on bunks down here at points.
Yes, if we haven't got room for the weapons, we just put bunks on the side and people sleep next to them.
Yeah. And how long have you been in the submariners for?
I've been in the Navy for 4 years and on board the submarine for 2.
And what about you?
I've been in for nearly 8 years now and I'm on board with submarine for 1.5 years.
So, you're old hands, really. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
Yeah? So what have the best bits been?
Probably one of the best things for me is when we go to a foreign port, we get to stay in hotels.
Nice. Makes up for all that hot bunking and the cramped space. Yeah. And Dermot, there must be some quite difficult times as well.
I'd say limited contact with family and being away for so long. Yeah, email on board is patchy at best, obviously due to being a submarine.
So that makes it probably quite tough. So it's good when you actually do get off and see your loved ones.
Yeah.
But you both volunteered, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
What made you want to join up?
You don't really hear much about the submarine service, so I thought it'd be quite interesting to go and find out for myself.
Brilliant. Well, I shall leave you to it. You to check the weapons and you to check the spuds. I think it's chips for tea. Right, I know your husband Mike is a submariner. Was he a submariner when you guys met?
No, we met at school years and years ago, so we've been through it all together, really.
So when he came home from work and said, I'm thinking of becoming a submariner, how did that go down?
I thought he was mad. I couldn't really understand why he'd chosen to be a submariner.
So he's been doing that for a fair few years now, but is it getting any easier? Are you getting any more used to it?
The first time he ever went away, it was horrific. I was in tears and all my friends, you know, as we had the last phone call before he sailed. But now, you know, it's getting a lot easier, and sort of, I think over time you just get used to it and you develop your coping strategies.
So what kind of periods does he go away for?
They seem to bounce in and out a few times before they finally go. I think last time they sailed and they were away for 9 days, and then they came back and then out for a few days and then back. So you always think you're saying goodbye for 6 months. And I think last time my little boy said to me, you know, why do you always cry, Mummy, when Daddy goes to work? And I was like,
Of course, normally, I guess, with Mike in a different role, you'd be able to phone and text and email. But I guess, of course, it's completely different when he's on the submarine.
We do have email, but it's just text only. We can't send pictures or attachments. And the email's intermittent and a bit cranky. And then obviously when they go silent on operations, there's just no email at all, so there's no contact at all then for however long they go silent for. I think our record's about 12 weeks.
It certainly sounds very tough when Mike's away. What kind of support network do you have at home with friends and family, and also within the Navy?
I'm very lucky. I get really good support from, you know, my parents and Mike's parents. We're both from forces families, so they're very understanding of sort of the trials and tribulations. As a boat, the wives and families of Torbay have bonded really, really well. And that's just brilliant, because my problems are different to the problems of a sort of a marine family or the problems of someone on a surface boat. So it's really lovely to speak to someone who knows exactly what you're going through, who knows, you know, how upsetting it is that you can't just ring them and wish them happy birthday or something.
And what about the homecoming? Is that quite a big affair?
When the submarines used to come in, you know, quite often they just slip in during the night and no one would really notice. So for the last few homecomings, I've organised, you know, quite a big family event for them. You know, and we've had sort of kids entertainers and food laid on for the families, and we've made it all a lot more official, and we've had the funding from the Families Welfare Grant to do that sort of thing. And I think it, you know, it's nice, it is a celebration, they are coming home, and it's the time for all the families to get together again, so it's something worth celebrating.
So how long have you been a submariner for now?
I've joined my first submarine in 2006, and then joined Torbay in 2008.
I know Laura said she finds it quite difficult to wave you off with the boys. How do you actually find it when you have to wave goodbye and come on board?
It's quite demanding, because the first sort of week is when you're finding to get into your routine, but we're working sort of 6 hours on, 6 hours off, 7 days a week. So once you get into that routine, it's not too bad, because you can almost put home to the back of your mind. But you get into that 6 hours on, 6 hours off, and life goes on, and you work out, you know, what day it is by what food's coming up on the menu. And then you can get into that routine, and before you know it, you're hopefully coming to the end of the deployment. And then obviously it's that last week when you think, crikey, we're going home, when things, you know, it gets back to like in that first week where you start praying to get back alongside again and see your family again. It's very tough. But, you know, if you leave in winter and you come back in summer, just to walk on the grass, just to walk on, you know, walk in a park, just to take the kids out and all that kind of stuff. That's the real stuff that you take for granted, but actually you really do appreciate once you get back alongside. It's great. And
what about the boys? I know they're quite young, but do they understand what Daddy does?
Alex, who's my eldest, he's 5 years old. He pretty much is starting to get to grips that if I go away, it could be for a long time. But William, who's sort of 3, still pretty much takes it in his stride. He sort of says, "Oh, Daddy's home," or "Daddy's not home," and you know, they've got countdown charts and all that kind of stuff to get me back, and they cope well.
And I bet you've got countdown charts here as well till you get home.
I would imagine that, of the 130 people on board, there's probably at least 125 countdown charts, certainly in the last week anyway.
Would you say then that life on board is quite different to life in general service?
Obviously it's a lot more confined, a lot smaller team, a lot, whilst you might have chiefs operating in certain areas, I'll quite often have a leading hand or a PO, and all the little silly things like if we're silent on operations, you've got no communication with the outside world, so you have to make a lot more decisions for yourself. And whilst on a surface ship, someone of my seniority would have a lieutenant commander to go and talk to regarding logistics issues. I don't have that. I'm not blessed with that that luxury. So we pretty much have to make the decisions and stick to them, and either fall on our sword or reap the rewards.